What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. Let's go my core plays for week 4 of the NFL season on DraftKings and FanDuel. And what we like to do here is go over my player pool, basically go position by position, not talking over the entire slate, but just a few talking points at each position. We'll put a lamp as we progress through it, more so for a single entry tournament build with the players that we have talked about. Then at the end, I'll run my optimizer to see who is popping the most as of right now with the current projections and ownership projections that I currently have set in place. And also, if this is your first time here, my name is Chris Pinnell. I break down NFL DFS each and every single week on this channel. So if you do enjoy today's content, or even if you don't, consider liking the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, be rude to me in the comments, be mean, call me ugly. I don't really care either way, but I would love to hear from you. And even though nobody asked, I am still in the process of setting up my office/studio, whatever you want to call it. But I did get a new camera and I realized the audio is a bit echoey in this room. I've been working on it, but I do have acoustic panels coming in, so hopefully in the future, the audio sounds pretty good. And as always, if you like what you see on the screen here, including my model, it's all available completely free for a week in the link down below in the description or the pinned comment, since Patreon does offer free week trials. It's got all the data you'd ever need, color-coded nice and neat, so it's easy to follow. Projections, optimizer, ownership projections, cheat sheets, going over cash games, tournaments, all that fun stuff. I do cover other sports as well, and my Discord community, which is always a fun time. So again, if you want to check that out, link down below, completely free for a week. If you like it after a week, you can stay. If not, tell me to kick rocks. I don't care either way. But let's dive into it here. And my thought process on quarterbacks this week has not really changed much since earlier. Pretty much the same exact guys. It's just really the games that I think are going to be the highest scoring, or they just have good matchups, or like their price points for the most part. Now, the one thing we have to keep in mind at the quarterback position is that it pretty much dictates the rest of your lineup. So if you are someone that wants to spend up at running back this week, like Christian McCaffrey, guys like Josh Allen, Tua, it's going to be hard to do that, because if you are rostering either quarterback, it's a great game, 53.5 point over under. Definitely looks like the game to target this week, just points wise in general. Should be high scoring, 28.25 implied team total for Buffalo, 25.25 for the Miami Dolphins, and only a 3-point spread. The problem is, though, the stacking options, and if we are building good tournament lineups, we typically want 1 to 2 pass catchers with our quarterback, and then we'd like a run back option in that game. Problem is, like with Justin Herbert, it's a little bit easier to do because, yes, he has Keenan Allen, who's kind of expensive, but at the same time, you have cheap options like Gerald Everett, Joshua Palmer, and then the run back options are at least somewhat cheaper over in Vegas. But with Allen and Tua, you have Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. You run money pretty quick. So if you are really liking CMC this week, you might have to shy away from those guys a little bit and just try to think of it like that. Because when you roster quarterback, it just pretty much puts you in a certain direction for your entire lineup. You have to build according to that. So there's something to keep in mind. But Josh Allen, Tua, both guys, I don't mind in tournaments. As far as cash games are concerned, if you can fit Josh Allen, I don't mind it. I feel like Justin Herbert might be the best cash game option this week, especially since everyone's jamming in guys like Joshua Palmer, Keenan Allen. It would just kind of make sense to play the quarterback, because if they're going to have a good game, well, that means you probably want Justin Herbert to do a good game. I'm not saying you always have to stack in cash games or anything, but I do think it makes somewhat sense this week. But for Allen and Tua, Allen's going to offer you that rushing upside. That's something Tua will not offer you, so he just has a little bit of a safer floor. But at the same time, Tua is averaging nearly 350 passing yards per game this year. He's got great offensive weapons in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Allen's got Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Dalton Kincaid, who hopefully can break out at some point, and then Dawson Knox as well. So fine with both in tournaments. I just don't really see myself getting there in cash games this week. I do think Herbert's probably my QB1 in that regard. And while this isn't as a good of a looking game as the Buffalo-Miami one, it's still 49.5 for the over-under, and 27.25 is only 1 point behind the Buffalo Bills, and he's a little bit cheaper. 5-point spread here. I'm hoping Jimmy G can play, although he is trending in the wrong direction with his concussion. Still in protocol, so we'll have to see what happens. I'm preferring him to play because I feel better about the run back options, because we know who's going to get the ball. It's Jacoby Myers and it's Devontae Adams, which I'm assuming whatever quarterback is in will probably do the same thing. But I'm not sure it'll be. I'm not saying Jimmy G is the greatest thing on earth, but he's reliable enough to get them the ball. But I do like Herbert, definitely looking like the QB1 in most places, but ownership-wise, I should say. But projection-wise, it's all very close up top. Kirk Cousins, $7,100. I do prefer him in dome games, so him being on the road in Carolina bumps him down a little bit for me, but I feel like the Vikings have to be on our radar every single week this season. The defense isn't good. The offense is good, though. They can put up a lot of points, and we have really good weapons here. Justin Jefferson, best wide receiver in football. TJ Hawkinson, top 2, top 3 tight end in football. Wouldn't surprise me if he's the tight end 1 at the end of the season. For fantasy purposes, no disrespect to Travis Kelce. Love the guy, but TJ should be in for a huge season. Just have to see if the touchdowns are going to keep producing, but hopefully they will. And then, like I said, the defense is just so bad that it just keeps them in shootouts almost every single week. Cousins has thrown the ball nearly 45 times per game so far, 360 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns per game. A little bit of a price decrease compared to guys like Tua, Herbert, Allen, but honestly, he's got very similar upside. And then if you were someone that's looking for value at the quarterback position, I found 3 guys under 6K that all project for around 3x value for me. And I do think they are pretty viable here. So you have Brock Purdy facing off versus the Arizona Cardinals. Pretty easy matchup there. Russell Wilson versus the Chicago Bears. Absolute dumpster fire of a game. Both these teams are terrible, but I mean, the defenses are so bad. I think points are going to be put up, so it's really not a bad game to stack up, as ugly as that sounds. Matthew Stafford, $5,700 versus the Indianapolis Colts pass defense, which really isn't that much of a pass defense. Should be easy times here for Matthew Stafford, Tutu, and Puka, hopefully. But looking at Purdy here, the only concern would be game script, as they're 14-point favorites at home. Near 29-point implied team total. And if CMC is not getting the touchdowns, it's probably because Purdy threw a couple, or at least a few, maybe 2, Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. It sounds like he's going to be good to go. You also have George Kittle. So the stacks are really not that expensive here. So if you're just looking to get a cheap quarterback and a good offense, good system, high total versus a pretty bad team, Brock Purdy makes a lot of sense here at $5,900. Russell Wilson, like I said, the Chicago Bears defense has just been absolutely dreadful this season. And you're actually not getting a bad price. He's $7,500 on FanDuel, only $50 on DraftKings. It's really easy to stack this up with either a Cortland Sutton or a Jerry Jeudy. Now, the run back options on the Chicago Bears are obviously not too impressive. You're looking at guys like DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, and maybe their running back, Sean Johnson, but not too pretty. So it's one of those things where maybe you can just get a couple of pieces from Denver and kind of move on. Then Matthew Stafford, this is one of my favorite stacks of the week. In my first look video, this was the stack that we went with. We went with Stafford, Tutu, and Puka Nacua. Ran it back with Michael Pittman. I'm not going to do it in this video just for the sake of repetition, but I do think this is one of the best cheap, yucky stacks of the entire week. All right, moving over to our build here. Lots of quarterbacks that I like, but since we did Stafford earlier in the week, let's go with Justin Herbert. Now, this is obviously a pretty chalky option, so we're going to try to find a way to make this just not chalk across the entire board. If I do it, I apologize. I'll try not to, but we'll find some pivots here and there to make it not too bad. And moving on to the ball carriers, kind of hate the running back position this week. Like, I don't even like half these guys up here, but for the sake of talking about people and just we need some bodies, I have them up here. But because I built 150 lineups, I built 20, built 3, built 1, so I just can't play 2 running backs in all my lineups this week. So unfortunately, we do have to expand our horizons and try to dig a little bit and find some guys that look somewhat viable. So if you are spending down at quarterback this week, wide receiver, whatever it may be, you'll probably have the money for CMC, and I feel like playing him is a pretty good idea here. $9,200 on DraftKings, $97 on FanDuel. Really good spot here versus Arizona. Kind of like the Tony Pollard play last week, but I do trust CMC a little bit more. We know his upside every single week. The floor is high, the ceiling is high. There's just really nothing not to like here. 120 yards on the ground this season, 20 rushing attempts, got into the end zone 1 times per game, 5.9 yards per carry, and the targets haven't been super high this year, 4 targets per game, but still equates to just under a 15% target share. Good matchup here versus Arizona. So if you have the money for him, yeah, jam him in. James Cook, if you are not getting exposure to that Bills passing attack, they're going to put up points, and you can score on this Miami defense. 28.25 implied team total, 3-point favorite at home. He gets the volume, probably going to get you close to 20 touches in this game, anywhere from 15 to 20, hopefully a couple of targets. That's going to be the case at $6,300 on a high octane offense. I will take it. Kyron Williams, $6,000. If you are someone that likes running backs that play every single snap and run a lot of routes, Kyron Williams is your guy. I'm not sure really how talented he is, but he's on an offense that should be able to move the ball versus Indianapolis. They are road dogs here, but I mean, they should be in scoring position at some point. And again, he plays every single snap and runs a ton of routes. You can't ask for much more at $6,000, so he is firmly in the player pool. Now, honestly, if you're playing cash games, I would say he's kind of a lock there. Not saying he's a lock to do well, but the opportunity will be there, and for the price point, he makes a lot of sense. Miles Sanders at $5,800. If you are stacking this game up and you don't want to use any of the Carolina run back options as far as like pass catchers are concerned, Miles Sanders makes sense from a volume standpoint, and it's a really good matchup versus Minnesota as well. I know Joshua Kelly absolutely sucked last week, but let's be honest, I think Joshua Kelly might be the worst running back in football. I'm so tired of playing that guy. I do not have him on this list just because I'm mad at him, but honestly, if I'm playing 150 or 20 lineups, he might filter in a few, especially over on FanDuel, but I'd rather not talk about it, to be honest. But Sanders here, he gets targets, 6 targets per game this year, 4 catches, 15.3% target share, getting close to 15 carries on the ground. That usage is pretty good for a back that isn't that bad at football. I mean, at times it's been bad, but Sanders isn't terrible. $5,100, I will take it in a decent matchup. Alexander Madison on the flip side of this game, if you're not playing the passing attack, he's a 4.5-point favorite. I know K-Makers is there now. Wasn't active last week, but Madison wasn't too bad. He got close to 100 yards, did almost fumble, but $5,100 for a team that should put up a good amount of points. They're on the road, so maybe they don't throw the ball as much. I think Madison makes sense. Just kind of have to hope he gets into the end zone. DeAndre Swift has been amazing the past 2 weeks. I think he's like around close to 10 yards per carry at this point. Obviously, that's not sustainable, but even with Kenny Gainwell being back last week versus Tampa, DeAndre Swift was still the man, putting up a ton of yards. He's actually averaging just over 100 rushing yards per game this season. Again, these are not sustainable numbers, close to 7 yards per carry, but enjoy the ride while it lasts. And this is a team like throwing the football, and Swift is a talented back when he's healthy, and as of right now, he is healthy, and I'm not really sure how long that is going to last. Javonte Williams, $5,500. If you are not a believer in Russell Wilson, Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, the Broncos are probably going to put up some points in this game. And while Javonte Williams still coming off that massive injury from last year, he's pretty cheap, and every single game this year he's bounced around 10 to 15 carries, and he's going to get you close to a handful of targets. Not a bad price point for a talented back in a dream spot versus Chicago. So heading over to our lineup, I would love to play CMC, but we did it earlier in the week, so let's just try to be different from that. So let's avoid CMC here and see what kind of money we have to work with. We will scroll down. I like Kyren Williams a lot. I did Stafford early on in the week, and I did not have Kyren Williams, so I guess it would make sense if we plugged him in here. So $6,000, just really hard to avoid with that opportunity that he's going to have. And then after that, we could obviously spend up, but I'm going to go with Javonte Williams here because obviously if one Williams does well, the other one has to. That's just the obvious correlation play. Not really. But I am going to roll him here. $5,500, good matchup for Chicago. And I honestly feel pretty good about that because we have a near 8K quarterback and we still have over $5,000 left. I realize Keenan Allen's a bit pricey, but honestly, this should not be that hard to fit, and we should have some good flexibility throughout the rest of our lineup. And finally, some fun players to talk about. We got the wide receivers, and there is a long list of them. Now, what you're probably thinking, well, it's pretty easy just to name everybody on the list because some of these guys are going to go off. Sure, but I am just giving examples here because the quarterbacks we talked about, we have to have a couple of their pass catchers with them. So don't be intimidated. It is just a follow your flow path from your quarterback. So, for example, in this build currently, we have Justin Herbert. As much as I love Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, they don't make sense in our build. We have to look at Keenan Allen at $7,900. Now, obviously, if you can play them as a one-off in your build with Keenan Allen, sure, be my guest, but that's not what we're going to look at first. So we're getting a flow chart of Keenan Allen, and then all the way down here, we have Joshua Palmer in our Justin Herbert build. And then after that, we need a run back option. So we're looking at a guy like Devontae Adams or Jacoby Myers. So we have 20 wide receivers here, but we narrow that down to like a group of 5 that are viable. And then after that, if you have an open spot at wide receiver or flex, that's when you can pick from this list here, depending on what kind of salary, roster construction, whatever it may be, you have left. So hopefully that makes sense. So if you're using Kirk Cousins, you have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. You just kind of have to follow your flow path there. Obviously, the big 3 in the slate, you have Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs. Although, honestly, I have Keenan Allen as my wide receiver 1 this week at $7,100. On FanDuel, that's a different story. Much harder to fit over there because he is more expensive than Justin Jefferson, which I don't think is insane, but it is weird to see. So if you're on DraftKings, expect heavy ownership over there on FanDuel. It should be a little bit lower. Jamar Chase, I do not have Joe Burrow on this video, but if you do want to stack with him, I don't hate it versus Tennessee. They are a pass funnel defense. But I just think this game kind of sucks, man. 41 over under. Not loving the upside overall, but I do think as a one-off for Jamar Chase, if you can afford him, it's not bad because it is a pretty good matchup. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, if you're rostering Brock Purdy, that makes sense. And I think we just got a news alert that Deebo Samuel is expected to play, if I read that right. I'm recording right now, so I want to take the time to look at it, but I think he's going to be good to go. Puka for cash games, love him there. Should be heavily targeted. Really soft matchup versus Indianapolis. Pittman's a fine run back option with Los Angeles Rams stacks. George Pickens, another guy that I think is fine as a one-off if you're just looking for volume and a talented wide receiver. Quarterback play, obviously not too great in Pittsburgh, but I don't hate like a mini stack because I don't really want to use CJ Stroud or Kenny Pickett this week. So if you're just trying to mini stack within your lineup of another stack, Pickens with like a Nico Collins or Tank Dell, like on your wide receiver 3 slot in your flex, I don't think it's the worst idea in the world. But Nico Collins, Tank Dell, I mean, these guys are studs. They're getting plenty of opportunities. CJ Stroud's been excellent through 3 weeks. I think he has over 900 yards in 3 weeks so far. It's definitely been I don't know if I want to call it surprising, but the exact numbers he's putting up, I would say, is definitely a bit of a surprise, especially for a rookie in Houston. But both these guys are in a 19% target share. Nico Collins is at a 32% market share of the team's air yards. I mean, both these guys had big play upside. We saw it from Hank Dell last week, and I think we saw it from Nico the week prior. And Pittsburgh has been giving us some points so far, 2 wide receivers. So I think these guys definitely make sense as one-offs if you don't want to full-on stack that game, which I totally get. Adam Thielen, I was wishing Andy Dalton would be the starting quarterback because I was really liking Adam Thielen. He was heavily targeted last week, had a huge game. Bryce Young, obviously, we're still learning, getting better, but at $4,500 for what Adam Thielen's seen this year, about 8 targets per game and a 20% target share versus one of the absolute worst defenses versus wide receivers. I don't hate it. Then Joshua Palmer, 4K flat. Hard not to like him here. High total in a completely new role here now that he's not behind Mike Williams. So as long as he's going to get you 5+ targets, which is, I believe that's what I have him projected over. I got him for like 10 to 12 points. Hard not to like at 4K, especially in the specific build where we have Justin Herbert. It really opens up the salary. And moving over to our build, again, plenty of wide receiver options, but since we are going the Justin Herbert route, we have to pair accordingly. So we're going to roster Keenan Allen, which honestly, he's underpriced, $7,900. I think FanDuel got it right. Maybe he shouldn't be more than Justin Jefferson, but he should be in that tier. So on DK, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't know if he'll be the highest owned player, but I think he might be pretty close to it. I'll have to see what my ownership projections say, but honestly, I might have him the highest. So we have Allen. We're going to roll Joshua Palmer out as well at $4,000 to get that double stack, and it's really easy to do because we still have nearly $5,000 left per player. Now, our run back option, it's either going to be Devontae Adams or Jacoby Myers. I really do hope that Jimmy G does play. But no matter who the quarterback is, they're going to move the ball somehow. It's a very beatable matchup versus the Chargers. Definitely have given up points to the wide receiver position so far this year. So if we plug in Adams, that's $3,600 left per player, which you factor in cheap defense, cheap tight end. It's probably doable. So Myers, I believe, is $5,600. If I remember correctly. Yeah, $5,500. So if we need the money, we can drop Adams to Myers. But we'll roll with Adams right now. And finally, the most exciting part of any DFS video, we're talking tight ends and defense. I know, it's exhilarating. It's a lot of excitement, but you have to contain yourself. I know talking about Gerald Everett, Tyler Higbee, Pat Freiermuth, it gets you going. It gets me going too, but we're all going to have to make sure we settle down a little bit as we do this. But up top, we have TJ Hockenson, George Kittle. I don't really want to put George Kittle in the same tier as TJ Hockenson, but TJ, he's my tight end 1 on this slate, as should be for everybody. I don't think it's any surprise here. Decent matchup versus Carolina. Cousins is going to throw the ball. If he's going to throw it 35, 40 times per game like he does every single week, it seems like. Again, we're not in the dome, which I kind of hate, but as long as he doesn't fall apart here versus Carolina, Hockenson should be in for a solid game. He gets you at least 6-7 targets every single week, and you always got a decent chance at a touchdown with his big body. George Kittle, if you're rolling Brock Purdy out, that's probably the only way I get the Kittle is in Brock Purdy stacks. Tyler Higbee, just another piece of the Rams, which I think are just too cheap this week and a good matchup. Gerald Everett, really cheap piece for Justin Herbert, but we already have Palmer and Keenan Allen, so I'm not going to triple stack with them. Pat Freiermuth is picking up quite a bit of ownership this week across the board, which I get. I mean, he's a talented tight end, but it's not like he's been busy this year by any means. He's averaging you 15 yards per game on just over 1 catch and 3 targets. Touchdown, yeah, that's always going to be a possibility, but talking about a guy with a less than a 10% target share, so I think we should be a little bit careful with the ownership there. Zach Ertz, $3,200. He's cheap. He gets targets. The matchup sucks, but if you were looking for a run back option from Arizona, not the worst idea in the world, $3,200. And then as far as the defenses are concerned, if you guys have been with me all year, what's the first thing we do? We scroll down and look for the first viable defense just Vegas-wise. And from the Bills and below, it's looking pretty bad. We have dark shades of green, so we're probably going to be avoiding them. But what looks pretty good here is the Browns defense with a 19-point implied team total. They're playing at home, 39.5 over-under. This defense under Jim Schwartz has been elite so far. I think they've given up 1 touchdown, and it was a George Pickens 70-yarder. Other than that, field goals to the Tennessee Titans, field goals to the Cincinnati Bengals. So they've been shut out so far, and they have great pieces. It's just the coaching obviously hasn't been too great in years past. Other than the Browns, though, I don't really see much that stands out to me. If you just want to play a random defense with a total below 20, be my guess, but I'm not really one to spend up. So I'll be pretty heavy on the Browns defense, and then the rest will just filter in. All right, so to finish this lineup off, we have 3 spots left, $3,600 to do it. We got a cheap defense here. Let's just plug in the Browns. I know it's chalky, but let me live a little bit. $4,000 left for the tight end position and our flex spot. I would like to get a piece of one of those Texans wide receivers. I think at least one of them has a good game, if not both. So let's plug in Dell for now since he's a little bit cheaper. $4,600. It'll leave us with 34 for the tight end spot, which I believe leaves us Muth. So yeah, I mean, this is a pretty chalky lineup, but roster construction wise, it does work. But be aware of the ownership. But if you're playing single entry, I don't think this is anything too insane. We have Justin Herbert double stack with Keenan Allen, Joshua Palmer, ran back with Devontae Adams. We have the Williams stack at running back, which is not a real stack, but we're going to make it one. Kyron and Javonte. We have Freiermuth at tight end, Tank Dell in the flex, which, again, a little bit of correlation there. Mini stack going back and forth there. Then we have the Browns defense. So super chalky, leave $0 on the table. Do not copy and paste this, guys. We built it on the fly just based off the players we talked about. The copy and paste lineups from YouTube, you deserve to lose because it's an awful, awful strategy. You can apply the same techniques that I'm using with your own lineups and your own favorite players, but keep in mind, don't copy and paste. And like I said in the beginning, I just want to run the optimizer at the end to see who is popping as of right now. And I get people asking me whose optimizer this is or projections. It's just mine. So if you do get access to the Patreon, you can just use this yourself. But I just did a few settings here. So I just made sure that stacks were on to get at least like a wide receiver, tight end, and a run back option with me. I threw some randomness on and did 150 lineups. So I'm not sure how good they'll look, but I just want to see like who's popping specifically. So if we go over to our usage chart here, Keenan Allen is getting absolutely yammed in there, 83% and 150 builds, and that's just with a little bit of randomness. So yeah, obviously loves Keenan. Showing up in stacks already with Justin Herbert, Jimmy G run back, Herbert again, even making it in just one-offs. So yeah, everyone is going to be on Keenan this week. Jacoby Myers, Madison's popping, Kyron Williams, Adams, Cook, Thielen, Dell. Pretty much all guys we talked about for the most part, so not really surprised there. Team stacks, looking like the Chargers getting popped in the most. Just Chargers and Raiders, I mean, that game is just so easy to get to, and it's going to be very popular this week. It's one of the reasons why Buffalo, Miami is not getting the kind of love it is, because these guys are a little bit cheaper, and they all project pretty well too. Minnesota, the Rams, the Colts are popping a little bit. I will say Josh Downs, I believe, was showing up quite a bit, not someone we talked about, so my projections like him that much. Maybe I should up my interest there. And then game stacks, I mean, as you can see, Raiders, Chargers, Colts and Rams getting quite a bit of love. Carolina, Minnesota, so not really too surprised there. And even though we don't really like the quarterbacks too much in Houston and Pittsburgh, a lot of the players, since they're cheap, are popping quite a bit there as well. With that being said, guys, that's all I got for you this week. I hope you did enjoy, or even if you didn't, consider liking the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions for new videos, or whatever it may be, let me know down in the comments. I'll be more than happy to get back to you. I wish you all the best of luck, and I'll see you all next time.